We grow when we give.
We grow when we give.
We grow when we give.
Nosotros crecemos cuando damos.
We grow when we give.
与えるとき成長する。
We grow
when we give.
Welcome to ROG, Return on Generosity. I'm your host, Shannon Cassidy. This podcast celebrates generosity at work, not financial giving valuable time, mutual respect, alternative perspectives, and genuine collaboration. Our special guest today is Frank Patterson, President and CEO of Trilith Studios, the second largest purpose-built film studio in North America, where Avengers, Endgame, WandaVision, and The Suicide Squad were produced, among others. Most recently, he led the transition of the studio from a facilities business to a three-pillar business focused on content, technology, and world-class facilities. What I appreciate most about you, Frank, is your authenticity, humility, and genuine interest in figuring out what is both wise and practical. Welcome to ROG, Frank.
Thanks, Shannon. So great to see you again. I just love your energy and I'm excited to be here.
Me too. Me too. I can't wait to talk to you about this topic that I think is so organic to you that it might be difficult even for you to suss out, like, what do I do exactly?
And I love what you're doing, this focus on generosity. You got me thinking. This is going to be fun.
Good. Awesome. So why don't we talk a little bit about your background? You know, how do we have the privilege of Frank Patterson in our lives?
Well, I realized the other day, this is my 40th year in the film business.
What?
And I know I don't look it.
Not at all.
But I started in 1983, as a filmmaker, shooting commercials and writing and directing my own stuff. And I actually loved teaching as a grad student. I just loved the whole teaching process and the making process. So I just continued that track for the rest of my career. I've been an educator and a filmmaker, film executive ever since. I've also... By the way, my mom says if I wasn't a filmmaker, I'd be a musician. So I'm also a musician. She thinks I should be a musician first.
Okay.
I don't know if that's what that says about the films I'm involved with. But anyway, so I'm a passionate musician. And if I weren't here at the studios, I'd probably be on tour with Walt Wickens in Texas somewhere right now. That's I love music. So
what is your instrument, or how do you?
Piano. I sing and play piano.
Oh my gosh, that's
I have two kids, one who is graduating next month from Florida State. And then I have another one who is an AD, an assistant director in the movie business in Los Angeles, who just got married. My wife's an actress, Leslie France. You may have seen her recently in Where the Crawdads Sing or the show The Resident. I'm very lucky. I'm a very lucky person, but that's basically my background.
That's incredible. Where were you raised, Frank?
I was raised in Texas.
Texas.
In the hill country outside of Austin, a little town called Bernie. And went to Baylor University and got very lucky. It was a program that was beginning a new kind of digital approach to content back in the 80s, right? Mm-hmm. A long time ago, early 80s. And really was always a storyteller. I kind of got a little writing scholarship out of high school that put me to school. And I've always loved story and just the idea of sort of, thinking critically and speaking clearly through a lens of a camera and exploring the human condition, all that stuff is just really exciting to me.
That's incredible. Oh, thank you for that background. So talk to me about generosity. You said this got you thinking. What are some of the things that you've been thinking about related to generous leadership?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I love that you're doing this because I think this is... You're targeting, a kind of theme that I think is so critically important right now, generally in the world, and specifically how we can execute in the business world, right? So for me, generosity is, at the end of the day, about my headspace personally. And what I mean by that is, folks like us learn pretty quickly that time is our most valuable resource, right? But when you boil it down, the cash value of time is really your attention. And where you point your attention, right? And over the last probably 10 years, once this sort of came to me, I realized I've got to be very deliberate about my attention. Because you know what it's like if you're married or with someone special and they say, you're with me, but where are you, right? Just because you're spending time with them doesn't mean you are focused, your attention is focused with them. And so the cash value of time is attention. And how I use my attention turns out to be, that kind of headspace turns out to be the most important tool in generosity. So at Trilith Studios, one of our core values, we have 4 big core values. One of them is second mile service, right? Looking for the opportunity to go the extra mile beyond what's expected for, your customer, for your colleague, for just a stranger who walks in the door. Being able to focus your attention enough to see them, really see them, right? Get everything else out of your head, see what they're looking at. If they're lost, if they're determined, whatever it is, recognizing what they need, knowing what they expect of you, and going that extra mile, right? So that's huge. And I got to tell you, we focus on this all the time, from literally our security team. Who, by the way, since you were last here, we recently made a change to turn our security team. And as you might imagine, at a movie studio like ours, security is extremely important, right? This is the property that our filmmakers make. The intellectual property has to be protected. That's very important. And when you pull up to our studio, there's a security team that greets you. Well, we're changing that to a guest services model. It's a guest reception team who, by the way, has a security component, but being able to have a team member that focuses their attention on you upon arrival and really quickly recognizes what you need and being able to take that second mile, never knowing what that is. As you know, I can give you a bunch of routines. You go to a store, a grocery store, and you can tell folks have been trained in certain stores to take you to the aisle when you ask for something. Well, that's a routine that you've been trained to do. And there's nothing wrong with that. But being able to really pay attention to someone and see what they need or see where they are is really beyond the routines. And it kind of reminds me of that very famous, one of her most famous quotes, Maya Angelou, who, says that very classic, beautiful, memorable thing that people forget what you said, they forget what you did, but they'll never forget how you make them feel. And that sort of making certain that my attention with my team members, I'm just thinking about my team members when I engage, I'm getting it to be pretty routine over the last 10 years, but really genuinely focusing my attention on what they need. And of course, that ranges from just an immediate problem that needs to be solved where I can help move a boulder or something to literally being able to recognize they're not in their right place at this moment. I wonder what's going on in their lives. And I've been focusing my attention on their lives, and I know who's in their lives, who their kids are, and what's important to them, and being able to see something's not right and having the safe place and the spirit of generosity that allows us to ask each other, are you okay, right? That genuine care that can only come from the generosity of focused attention. So it's a long-winded way of saying that to me, it's at the end of the day, it's just, are you really genuinely focusing your attention on the other or not?
Absolutely. And that's really why you come to mind when I think about generous leadership, because as you know, we've been through a lot together in the past, and your ability to just block out anything else that has nothing to do with the individual. Like, what does that person need? How can we support them? What do we need to do? And you rally people around. And I think that is an indicator of that you genuinely prioritize that. Exactly what you're saying. I'm noticing people, I'm recognizing the needs, I'm willing to postpone whatever else we had on the agenda for the day because this is more paramount to me, right? So really putting people first.
And what's cool about that is that it becomes infectious, right?
Yep.
So it becomes, people realize, oh, wow, that really felt great. And then when they see it in another and they realize, wow, I've got to pay attention to that person who I'm working with, and then of course, selfishly, it comes back to me,
Yeah, good. Yeah, let's talk about that.
We literally have team members checking in with you. You know, I can tell you, I know today, Tracy will say to me, you know, I know today you've got this meeting and I know you're probably nervous about it. So let's focus on what we can do together to get you prepared, right?
Yeah, that anticipating what do people need. I love that. How do I use my attention? And then you talked about that second mile service, right? It's not just like giving someone their agenda, but it's the thoughtfulness of like, how can we prepare you and what might you need and what might you be thinking? So that really paying attention to
That's
people.
right. Well, and the difference being if we said, look, just go the extra mile. Well, it reminds me of the service person at a restaurant who comes up and says, what else do you need? Versus the seasoned person who comes up and says, let me get you something. Let me refill that drink for you. Because they're paying attention, right? And so that second mile service really only works if we're genuinely paying attention. Because if I have to ask you what you need, your natural response is, I'm fine, right? And so it just perpetuates this kind of generosity or generous spirit if we're good at it. And it takes concentration and practice. And I mean, you know, it's all just muscle building, right?
Totally. And you use the example of your guest reception team and Tracy, you know, your internal team. I think it's also helpful to think about our peer groups, right? How are we doing this second mile service in all these areas of our lives, right?
That's right. And you know, I'm very close to, as you might imagine, a lot of studio operators and producers and, you know, peers and colleagues who either I've known them for decades and we like working together, or I know of them and we know of each other. And, you know, for me, it's critically important that when they, you know, the first time they walk in on Trilith, you know, either stages or here in the town or whatever, that they get a sense that we have been thinking about them, you know, that they feel cared for.
Yeah.
Or at least that we've thought about, you know, their arrival and what they need and before they even get here.
Right.
And that kind of peer-to-peer thinking, it's like welcoming a neighbor in your house or anything else. You want them to feel at home in your home. And so it really translates across sort of every aspect of your professional life. And as you might imagine, it blurs the professional and personal because these are all gifts we can use in our personal lives, and we should. It's just hard.
Yes.
You know, it's hard, especially when you have a tough day and, you know, you get into a problem that is consuming. I just went through a kind of 3-week period of a real challenging situation with one of our portfolio companies. And I just found myself obsessing over these potential solutions. And then, of course, I caught myself not paying attention to my team members, right?
Yeah.
And it's one of those moments. Now, of course, I had a lot of people coming around me saying, what's going on in your head? You know, so they're saying, let's solve together, right? But it's just that reminder that no matter how challenging the circumstance, being available, open, keeping that generous spirit, ends up being a great resource for you, even though you're giving to others. It always comes back.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Do you have any best practices, or when you talked about habits and behavior and all of that, like kind of routine habits for helping you to come back to paying attention? Because when you talked about the best value of time is attention, right? I mean, what are the ways that we can get ourselves back
my gosh, I got to tell you, and I won't go down this rabbit hole because I could spend an hour on this, but in the last couple of years, I started focusing intensely on sleep. And my team members are tired of hearing about it.
Okay.
But
our listeners aren't tired of hearing about it.
Yeah, I got to tell you, the sleep an effective rest for your brain that allows you to spend time that you need to sort of organize the thoughts in your head, to get some deep sleep, genuine rest, to allow, I won't go into the biology of it because that's a long discussion, but literally to sort of cleanse your brain, right? Is the thing that when I wake up in the morning, and so I wear this particular technology in my hand that monitors what I've done, I know that if I don't get a good night's rest 2 or 3, 4 days in a row, my ability to pay attention is gone. So I literally made the correlation a couple of years ago between my effectiveness at work as a leader and as a colleague and as a business partner and my ability to sleep. Now, I like wine. I drink wine. I am I'm sorry.
I love it too.
And there's certain bourbons I really like too. Okay. Well, it turns out I had to change my behavior, right? Significantly, because unfortunately that, alcohol affects your heart rate and your ability to fall into deep sleep. And there was a direct correlation between whether I had a drink and how much attention I could pay the next day.
Oh my goodness.
And so I'm just like, this is crazy.
Right.
And then of course it's related to exercise. If I get enough exercise in the day, don't have that glass of wine and go to sleep and get the hours that I need, right? I am a good colleague at work. I can pay attention and all of a sudden my generosity is authentic.
Yes.
I'm not having to go through the mental exercise. So I would say that the number one focus and really my routine is all bent around. There's a researcher named Dr. Matthew Walker.
Yes. He's amazing.
Yeah. And it really kind of woke me up. Actually, his book scared the heck out of me. I got to be honest with you. When I read it, it was a few years ago.
Right. He has that Sleep is Your Superpower TED Talk, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's right. And he also has a book, I think it's called How We Sleep or Why We Sleep.
Yeah.
But anyway, I read it and then I went down I was like, oh my gosh, I'm killing myself here, And it turns out, it was like, wow, this impacts my efficacy with my colleagues at work. And so then I've been promoting that idea here for the last couple of years.
Oh my gosh. Thank you for that. What a great tip. So everyone take a peek at Matt Walker's work and think about how you could improve your sleep, because it's sometimes it's those practical things that are right in front of our face that we just ignore, and we go to try to tackle some of these other things and you think, well, what if I just modified my personal routine a little and see, test it out and see. And you're saying that, yes, in fact, it makes a significant difference.
That's right.
Yeah. So going back to generosity and your own career, give me an example of an individual or a situation that you would say was really generous. You called yourself lucky, you are taking account for some of your fortune, but is there a standout person or a situation that you would identify? And it doesn't need to be huge, but you would say this is just a memorable example of someone being generous to me.
Oh boy. I'll give you a couple examples that are really easy that come to mind. Colonel Paul Matthews. When I was 21 years old, and he was appointed to a new position at Baylor University. It was called something like the director of recidivism. And so basically his job was to kind of get kids to, put programs in place to help college kids actually graduate. Now, for a lot of reasons that are funny and we can talk about it another time, I flunked out of college twice in a row. I was touring with a band. I had no interest in and I flunked out, and, I was a great student in high school, but, a lot of personal things that were going on with my family. And I was just like, anyway. And I woke up one morning, actually in a dumpster in Dallas, Texas, after this place we were playing. And the sun was rising over the dumpster lid. And I remember thinking, I should change my life. And I called my mom, and we went back to Baylor and met this Dr. Paul Matthews, Colonel Paul Matthews. And he just got it. And he just said, my mom was like, oh, he really needs to focus on his grades. And he was a great performer in high school. I don't know what happened. And Colonel Matthews said, what do you love? And I said, I love to play the piano. I love the arts. I'm a writer and blah, blah, blah. I said, great. We have this great place called Roxy Grove here at Baylor where all these grand pianos are. And how much do you like to play? I said, I play all the time. He said, 3-4 hours a day? He said, yeah. I said, okay, it's yours. And I'm going to book you a room. You're going to be playing in there every day or night. When do you like to play? Great. Anyway, he said, great, awesome, let's do it. And I think he may have been making this plan up because he was new in his position, but he was into me.
He's like, I'll find you pianos.
Yeah, he was like, and he said, okay, the rest of the time is mine though, so let's put this plan together. And it was a genuine connection with me that was in the spirit of generosity that really made me think, wow, this person gets me. He's paying attention to me, right? And it turned me around. I mean, my mom likes to say I made both dean's lists. I was kicked out, and then I was a 4.0 student, and it really was good timing. And then a recent example that just happened here at Trilith, again, where it just kind of comes back to you. My mom, who now is 80 and was celebrating her 80th birthday in November, and she lives in town here at Trilith, the town that we're building, which I can't wait for you to see again. It's just amazing, right?
I can't wait next week.
She had been here about 5 or 6 months, and we were going to have her 80th birthday party, and we're going to do it on a stage here and have a dance, and invited only our closest family. But this is the Mexican side of my family. So 37 people were coming in, our close families, right? And I started panicking a little bit. And I'm like, wait a minute, we better get some hotel rooms because, I got to figure out how to put all these people up. And I spent about a week doing it. And then I called Mom, said, Mom, I think I have this kind of worked out where people's going to stay. And she said, oh, no, honey, there's no need for that. Everyone's going to stay here in Trilith. I said, well, we haven't finished building the hotel. She said, no. It's all my neighbors have just gathered around and decided to put up the family. They just came to me. So literally, these people, I have no idea who they are. But these are town members here in Trilith who really believe in our vision for building this place, which you know how it is when you set a vision, Shannon, sometimes you're like, are we really getting there or not? Are we building this place and is it working? And I saw through this incredible act of generosity, these 7, 8 neighbors to my mom right here. And by the way, of course, they were at the party, so I got to know them. But they just generously gave of their homes and they fed my family. It was crazy. It turned out to be a great thing. Yeah, and it was utter community, and I didn't see it coming.
Wow.
I had no idea that would happen, and it was just beautiful. It was utter generosity.
Don't people just amaze you?
I know.
Right.
I know.
I mean, like, I think sometimes I'll admit I'm limited in my imagination of how great people actually are, just how creative we can be,
Yeah.
And that whole collective spirit. It's like if one person volunteered their home, that would help a couple of your family members. But the fact that it got galvanized and everyone, I mean, gosh, what a gift to your mom and you and just to all of us to hear this
and on
story.
The flip side, you can never imagine going to your neighbors and saying, hey, by the way, I got a bunch of family and can you, right? I mean, that would be, what a strange ask. But what an incredibly human, it's that Chris Christopherson song, Here Comes That Rainbow Again. You gotta remember those rainbows do exist.
Oh, I love that. So you talked about your vision and Trilith. I would love for you to share with our listeners, what are you building down there and what is your vision and mission?
Yeah, so really and it's a big vision, you recall, Shannon. We see at the end of the day, what we're doing is we're building this place that has every resource great storytellers need to do anything they can imagine. So that's a big idea, and we recognize it, right? But we happen to work with great storytellers, and we know what they need. And it's if you think about how you practically build that kind of vision, we focus our resources on what we call a creative market ecosystem, and all that means is, what are the businesses that we need to invest in or co-locate here at Trilith? And who are the brains? Who are the people that we need to have here that together create these resources that are required so that storytellers can do anything they can imagine? And so, right away, if you're a filmmaker, you're thinking, equipment and talent and, technology and resources. Yes, very much. But we're all humans. So we have also the Piedmont Wellness Center, which is a world-class 65,000 square foot wellness center. So any production that ever is here, the entire crew has a free membership to this wellness center, right? No studio's doing that right now in the United States. I mean, that's just not part of it. We have sort of chef-curated, locally owned restaurants. We don't have any brands, nothing wrong against some great brands, but we just want makers who are local makers, who are using local resources. We have now, I can't wait for you to get here, Shannon. We have now 8 or 9 restaurants of the 15 up, right? Yeah, and they're great restaurants, and it has this feeling of local because it is local, right? And we have, our own school. And we have the good fortune of living in a part of the United States or in this county that has really great public schools. So a lot of folks go to public schools, but we also have a lot of folks that want a different educational approach. And so we have the Forest School, led by Dr. Tyler Thigpen here at Trilith. And, just thinking about silly things like we have an amazing dog park, we have incredible reflection parks, and the idea that can we build a place that really is a great place to live, because a place where you can sleep well, by the way,
yes.
and be prepared as a storyteller to use these resources we've created to do anything you can imagine. And so that's the vision. Our mission at the end of the day is we're setting the stage for the great storytellers to inspire the world. And this stage, right, is really as a place. A lot of folks think of us as a studio, but it really is a place. And that's the stage we're setting so that great storytellers can inspire the world.
Incredible. I mean, it sounds like the accumulation of so many of the best. Like, what do people need to be their best, right? They need community. They need healthy food. They need fitness. They need places to be reflective, right? They need that second mile service where people are anticipating their needs. How can they be supported? And then, that thoughtfulness about how can we create an environment where people are liberated to really express themselves. And that's where we're going to get those creative juices flowing.
That's right.
I think that's so important.
Well, and it's also, it's interesting how the different development models over time, and then just look at the history of the way cities were formed, and then the way they were kind of broken up through the national highway system, and then the way they were trying to stitch back together, and then the way they were disbanded through the suburban movement and all these different sort of movements, and watching the way community was either helped or hurt through those processes, right, was the sort of great amount of study that we've all had to do. And particularly Rob Parker, the president of the town, he's become a sort of expert in this matter, a national expert. But the idea that our focus is on community results in really powerful things. Typically around 3:30, we have a movie actually that's shooting in the town from one of our companies, Believe Entertainment Group, and so you'll see like typical kind of scene, cameras, blah blah blah. At 3:30, by the way, or 4 o'clock, somewhere around there, this town becomes a kid's playground. Because we purposely designed the streets narrow and the cars have to be in the back, and it's all designed to be anti-friendly to cars, basically. Well, of course, the kids take over the town. They're on their bikes, they're running around, and it's just crazy around here with kids, right? And then you can see they kind of disappear and go and start doing their homework or get ready for bed or whatever. But that period of the day is a reminder that we're a community, right? I mean, they're literally... Harrison Ford was walking by here in town just the other day. Those kids have no idea who Harrison Ford is. They're just running around having a blast. If they realize, oh my gosh, in this superhero movie, this is who it is.
That's Indiana Jones.
Yeah, right. But that's not it. They're in the middle of their own imaginations, in the middle of their own play. And it creates a real sense of community because, by the way, genuinely, it is a community.
Mm-hmm. Right. And you think about how people who have fame and are at the level of a Harrison Ford and otherwise, that they don't get the luxury of being a regular person walking down the street without people bombarding them for selfies and autographs. So what a refreshing real new reality for him to be able to be among other humans and be a regular person.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, that's refreshing. So you talked about the cash value of attention, and I'd love to hear some of your thought leadership on some of the things that you do, the practical ways in which you are attentive to and generous toward your team.
Yeah, sure. Well, I mean, sort of like more formally, right? We create a growth strategy for every team member. Mm-hmm. So they come in the door, typically hired for a job that has a particular remit that is pretty easy to describe. But that is, of course, the beginning of what we hope is a life-altering journey for each team member, right? Mm-hmm. So how do we plus up this team member? And so this strategy that we lay out starts with their responsibilities in this job, but then also their dreams and desires about where they want to be, mm-hmm. which does not have to be in our company, mm-hmm. right? So that's also often shocking to people because we're certainly willing to replant people, to use a potting metaphor.
The grow method, sure.
In adjacent companies here in the town. I just got through seeing Amy, who was working on our security team, and now she's a logistics lead for MBS this morning. I was over there for an event. She came up and hugged me, and she said, I love this job. Well, she was a security team member, right? And we have the largest lighting and grip company here on the lot. She's now a logistics lead for them. And so she's not working for us. She's working for MBS. I don't care. That's awesome. Connor started in the mailroom, was working here at guest services at the front, now just became a coordinator for one of our sports broadcast companies that we invested in last year. And I was so happy when it happened. What's funny is they're always like, I'm sorry, I'm going to be leaving. I'm like, no, you're not. Yeah. This is the growth we've been talking about. This is exactly what we're talking about. And so it means, and by the way, it means investing in their education. Mm-hmm. Everybody knows how much I value education. Obviously, I've been the dean of colleges at universities. And so I do concern about, I am passionate about people learning to think critically and speak clearly and write persuasively and being able to realize their dreams through these tools that they can get if they're smart about education. So we do invest. I don't know if you remember Brittany, but she got her MBA from Georgia Tech. And, Tracy's finishing up a business management degree right now. In another context, it might be, well, how much time is she spending at work and how much time is she spending at school? Mm-hmm. To me, the school is the work. And by the way, it's all paying off.
Sure.
What she comes to me with now is very different than what she was coming to me with before she went through that program. Right. And so, it's that conscious, planned team effort to have a growth strategy for every team member. And that's hard, by the way, because, people learn and they change their minds, they change the directions, and they need to feel comfortable saying, you know what, I don't want to do this. I realize that what I love is this, whatever it may be, right? I've helped 2 team members recently find jobs at other companies that aren't related to us because they just realized they wanted to be doing something else. Great.
What is your philosophy behind all of that, Frank? I'm sure it's you and Craig and Zelda, right? You have an amazing team of people who are co-creating this.
We have a responsibility, right? So I'm very blessed to be in the position that I'm in. I have a lot of responsibility. But if you think about it at the end of the day, how does the interaction of these team members in my life produce a better person in them, right? At the end of the day. And by the way, again, it's focused attention from me, from our team members on them. And what happens is, and let me be a, McKinsey consultant who's only looking, and I like McKinsey a lot, but not to focus only on the bottom line, but let me do it for just the bottom line.
For
just
the
bottom line. Yeah. Well, wait a minute. What are you doing your you're putting this money in this person. This person, as soon as they graduate, Brittany could go somewhere else. And by the way, she got hit with all kinds of, job opportunities, right? So, so I'm not picking on Brittany here, but but just think of many examples where people are then made that much more attractive to the marketplace. What I'm betting on, and so far we're right, is that they're not going to find a better environment to work in. They can go on job interviews, and rarely are they going to find someone who is so focused on what they need and where their growth is and how their growth can contribute to the growth of the company in a way that's authentic, not just skills-based, because skills are important, but a way that your individual passions, the way you bring value to your life can bring value to the company and to the group, and the way I can help you help us, right? And so I'm betting, and so far we're right, this improves retention, right? We're putting a lot of money in growth of the individuals, and they're feeling it, and they're also getting the chance to apply that growth in real meaningful ways daily in their jobs. And they see and feel the impact. Back to that Maya Angelou quote, they feel it. And so it's really retention. It's both employees and customers, right? It really genuinely causes better health outcomes for each team member when they feel healthier and they feel healthy at work, right? Then the idea of leaving this environment for another 1% or whatever, right, of salary just seems like a big risk, and they're not doing it for that. They're doing it because they love being here. And their comp packages definitely are competitive, but it's where I think we win is the culture, that it really starts, of course, from generosity, right?
Absolutely. And you're such an intentional person that I believe that this originated, you and your executive leadership team, as your intentional culture. Like, I want to create a culture where people are seen, heard, invested in, valued, respected, right?
Well, the scary thing is culture is going to happen. So you're going to either inherit one that is a de facto result of not being intentional, or you're going to intentionally create it. So, it really is a call to action for any leader. It's the old saying, culture eats strategy for breakfast, right? And it's true. It's literally everything. And for us, it's about how, if we're going to compete, if we're going to win, it's going to be on talent, and it's going to be the people who make it happen. And the only way to give them the ability to do that is to invest clearly, intentionally, and heavily in the people. And I'm stating to what a lot of leaders is obvious. I think where my wake-up moment was investing attention, right? And genuinely being able to see what's needed.
So awesome. All right, so I'm going to attempt to recap some of this in terms of a takeaway tip, because for all of our listeners, they may not be able to do exactly what you're doing, but what are some of the things that they've heard you say that they could apply to their own work and lives? So number one is the how do I use my attention? I think that is the biggest call to action that I got, is that, the cash value of time is attention. I've even heard, how do you spell love? Time.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
So, right. And then sleep, and I loved how you said it's the efficacy at work. Like, what else could I do to be even more attentive, generous, present? Sleep being a big one. Exercise, your well-being. And then when you're talking about community, I just think that whole consideration of how are we creating community, both in our workplaces and in our neighborhoods and in our lives, how are we a catalyst for community? I think that would be just an interesting consideration for any one of us here. And then the talking about investing in people. I mean, the way that you do it so elegantly at Trilith, for people to think, how am I understanding what someone's career path could be, and how are we enabling them to continue to grow. What else could you add, Frank? Anything else you want to our listeners to hear?
Well, I mean, I just leave us with this thought that I think about it a lot. It's, the always wise Dr. Seuss. But, unless someone like you cares a whole awful lot, I love the way he said that, right? Unless someone like you cares a whole awful lot, nothing is going to get better. It's not. And that core concern about care and using your attention toward the care of another is really, it's what I focus on, and I'm the beneficiary of that because it comes back in spades.
Well, thank you for caring a whole awful lot the way you do, and really for the blessing of our friendship and our partnership. I am deeply grateful.
Oh, well, thanks, Shannon. It's so good to see you. And I just love that you're doing this. I love that you're getting the word out there. So
good. And I'll see you next week at Trilith.
Okay, good. See you then.
Thanks for listening to ROG, Return on Generosity podcast. Please help us grow by subscribing and reviewing us on your favorite podcast player. And for more information, visit bridgebetween.com. We grow when we give.
우리는 나누면서 성숙합니다.
We grow when we give.
On rayonne quand on donne.
We grow when we give.